Recording in progress.
That we will be sharing. Are they all set up to be able to present when we get to them?
They should be.
Should be. Do we have, I'm looking at hello. All right. You're not set up. They need the link for the meeting. Okay. Probably the easiest place to find that would be in the agenda for the meeting that's in the Friday packet. So we'll take a couple minutes and let you get set up there. But once you're online, it's probably either easiest for them to come to the, to the table. Sir, is it Jonathan? Is that correct? Sorry, John, did you want to join us up here as we collectively or affectionately refer to the kids table? We've got a microphone and at least when you're presenting, would that be helpful? It would make my life a tad bit easier. Okay, great. So we have three items on our agenda this evening. The first item, and I'm not entirely sure who's going to be taking this from the city's perspective, but the first item is item 6324, requesting an update on the status of implementing the climate action plan. And I believe we have multiple slides in our packet here. And to whom might be, who's going to take this one over? Is that?
I believe I'm, this is Ann Berwick. I believe I'm introducing the topic.
Fantastic. If that is okay with you, I will turn it over to you.
Terrific. It's certainly okay with me. Okay, before I actually get into the slides, I just want to make a bit of an introduction. And I want to thank the Public Facilities and Zoning and Planning Committee for scheduling what we've been calling Climate Night. I'm guessing Newton stands pretty much alone among communities in hosting such an event. But I want to sing not just your praises, but also the praises of the city's sustainability team. Leora Silks, the climate coach, and Bill Ferguson, my co-director, announced their departure. I frankly felt a bit desperate, but we're now in really excellent shape with Caroline Weiss, our awesome new climate action coordinator. And of course, you all know Sam Nyman, multitasker extraordinaire, who's already a great addition to our team. And I don't need to sing Josh Morse's praises to any of you for all he does for the city, and certainly not just with respect to sustainability.
Ms. Berwick, can I just ask if you don't mind to introduce yourself, because we know who you are, but the public is watching may not be as familiar with you.
Okay, you mean not everybody knows me? Okay, thank you very much, Councilor. Sure, I will. I'm Ann Berwick, and I'm co-director of sustainability for the City of Newton. Thanks. By way of singing our team's praises, I'll cite just a few examples, some of which you know about and which you'll hear more about in a few minutes. So those examples are more solar installations on municipal property than any other city or town in the Commonwealth, both reducing our carbon footprint and generating savings for the city. A default of 95% renewables in Newton Power Choice, the city's municipal aggregation program, setting an example for tens of other cities and towns and generally saving money for participants. The city's Energy Coach program, I think the state's first such program, with 736 recorded coach consults since the program start in 2021. A fully electric fleet of municipal sedans, 24 city-owned publicly available electric vehicle charging stations. As you well know, adoption and implementation now of the ordinance requiring all new buildings and substantial renovations to be all electric, which enables Newton to be one of the 10 cities and towns participating in the state's fossil fuel-free building program. Extraordinary work by the city's public buildings department with electrification projects that I won't take time to detail right now. For 9 years in a row, Green Communities grant awards ranging from $100,000 to $500,000, leveraging an additional $1.4 million in utility rebates. The city saves over $350,000 per year on energy costs from the resulting energy efficiency projects. This is not to say that we don't have a lot more work to do. We look forward to progress on the items I've just mentioned and many more. And of course, our team couldn't do any of our work without the support of the administration. I'll call out, of course, the mayor herself and Jonathan Yeo, and of course, the support of the city council. So I just really want to say thank you, and others will take it from here.
Thank you, Ms. Berwick. Is someone on your team going to run us through the slides
Okay.
here?
Actually, I'm going to take it from here in the first
You're
few.
going to run them through. Great.
First few.
And if I may, I will also note that we have been joined in the chamber by Councilor Kalis, and I see that Councilor Gentile has joined us online as well. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I will run through pretty quickly, the first few slides. Newton Power Choice, I think you all know about. This slide is accurate, but in some ways, I think misleading in two respects. 76% of Newton residential customers participate. That's not because 24% have opted out. That's because a big chunk of those are actually on competitive supply rather than on Eversource basic service, and we don't have any way of knowing who they are. But definitely the lion's share of Eversource basic service customers are participants in Newton Power Choice at 95% as the renewables standard. I'll just point out too, look at the little box in the right-hand corner. That refers to, on each slide, that refers to what we set as our objectives in in Climate Action Plan, what we're calling CAP 1.0. The other point is about 9% of participants having opted up to 100% renewables. We're really not spending a lot of energy getting people to opt up to 100% anymore, since they're automatically at 95%. Next slide, please. Building codes, so improving new construction and major renovations. You all know, and I mentioned quickly, the ordinance requiring that all new buildings and substantial renovations to be all electric. That makes Newton one of the 10 cities and towns participating in the state fossil fuel-free building program. You all know about the opt-in specialized code, which is the state's most progressive building code. And then the city's zoning ordinance requires larger projects to meet a number of really significant green building objectives, including an embodied carbon analysis. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm really channeling other people here, mainly Nicole Friedman and Jen Martin. I've already mentioned the first two items. I'm particularly impressed by this bike share number of 14,000 Newton trips on blue bikes in the last calendar year. And we expect a Newton's first bike and pedestrian plan sometime this calendar year. Next slide. And now I'm channeling Juanita Trabert. And I'd ask you to look in particular at the little icons on the right-hand side of this slide. Really, apart from providing excellent curbside collection services, the Juanita's team is about diversion from the regular trash stream. So look at these numbers, which are, I think, incredibly impressive. Single stream, which is very convenient, recycling almost 8,000 tons, and yard waste, 22,000 cubic yards. So all these numbers are really, I think, quite impressive. Next slide. Partnerships. It's hard to overemphasize how fortunate Newton is in terms of the advocates and groups who lend a hand and push us forward with respect to our energy, sustainable climate, all of the above objectives. So obviously we work closely and very much appreciate collaboration with the Newton Citizen Commission on Energy. We're partnered with numerous environmental organizations, Green Newton, Mothers Out Front, 350.org. So again, we're so lucky to have them. And we supported Green Newton in their Community First Partnership grant, and they've now hired a full-time Green Newton energy advocate who I expect we will be working very closely with. The microgrant program, I think this is a one-of-a-kind program, at least in the Commonwealth. The city contributes $2,500 a year, and the Village Bank contributes another $2,500 a year, encouraging applications for grants for projects that reduce greenhouse gases in the city. And we've awarded 10 microgrants since November of 2022. And last but certainly not least, collaboration with other city departments. And you've seen some reference to that already in our slides. Frankly, when I started working here 8 years ago, I think, I expected everybody to want to slam the door in my face and say, oh, we have other city departments, we have plenty of work to do. We don't need you to tell us what else we should be doing. In fact, that hasn't been the case. There's incredible, I'd say, generosity given how much work people have on their plates, and really important collaboration with other city departments. So I'm going to stop there and hand it over to, I think, Sam Nyman next.
No, you're gonna.
How about now? Okay. There we go. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, counselors. Good to be here. This past winter, the city council and the city took a major step forward by enacting BERDO. This ordinance requires our largest building owners to report their energy use annually, and for our non-residential buildings to meet declining emission standards, eventually getting to carbon neutrality by 2050. For context, our buildings over 20,000 square feet account for about 25% of Newton's emissions. So this is really important. What BERDO gives us now is a strong framework and program to do what the Climate Action Plan sort of envisioned, that you can see in the little box there, which is to have a deep collaboration with our building owners, businesses, and the utilities in order to drive down emissions. This year, we've got 46 buildings that are due to report, and the remaining approximately 340 up next year. We aim to hire a BERDO administrator this summer, and then convene the advisory commission in September to work through the process of developing regulations with a target of next spring to have regulations in effect. We plan over the course of the next year to develop a resource hub on the city website to help property owners to, with the technical assistance around how to do these building upgrades, and then also information on incentives and financing in order to pay for it. So next slide, please. We are currently in the midst of a major expansion of the city's solar portfolio. So since adopting the Climate Action Plan, we've brought online 7 solar arrays. That includes 2 canopies at North and the canopy at the library. And actually an 8th project, the roof at Williams, just recently went into operation. So that is now delivering energy to Williams Elementary School. That makes 19 total projects currently in operation. We've got 8 additional projects in the pipeline. So at Ainger and Cabot, we recently started construction on 2 rooftop projects there. At Ainger, that adds to the existing roof array. At Mason Rice, as soon as school finishes up this year, we'll get started there. And we're working with our partners in Parks and Rec, coordinating around Camp Echo Bridge, which also happens there. At Pierce, as soon as the roof replacement is complete this summer, we'll move to putting solar panels on it. And then with Lincoln Elliott in the Cooper Center, when those building projects finish up, same thing there. We've got 2 new canopies going at the Ed Center and at the parking lot at Wheeler Road in Meadowbrook, both getting started with construction early July. And I'll just mention, we had 1 other canopy in the queue at Memorial Spalding, but with uncertainty with tariffs and all that, with steel pricing, the financials didn't end up working for the developer. So that one is on hold at the moment. And if you go to the next slide, this is a quick look at what the canopy at the Ed Center is going to look like. So over on the right, that's the overhead shot with Craft Street right there. It's very similar to the existing canopies at the library and at North and South. And the next slide is the Wheeler Road, Meadowbrook Road canopy as well. And when all that work is done, that'll be producing approximately 40% of the city's electricity use, the equivalent of 40%. So a huge number. Up next, just wanted to mention the Climate Action Plan also prioritized ensuring that all new and renovated city buildings meet the highest energy performance standards. And we're delivering on that in a big way, thanks to Josh Morse and the public buildings team. So bravo there. At Franklin and Countryside, these are being built with ground source heat pumps, when a first for the city. At Lincoln Elliott and Horace Mann, those renovation and additions have air source heat pumps. And at Cooper Center, air source heat pumps. Also, just flag that project did receive the runner-up and the Mass Clean Energy Center's Embodied Carbon Reduction Challenge. So nice there. Next slide. We're also working to electrify existing buildings. So since CAP 1.0, we did a complete electrification at the Auburndale Community Library as well as NECP. We are in the final stages over at Newton Free Library with the new heat pump chiller there. And we're about to get started at Fire Station number 2, as well as Newton Housing Authority's Horace Mann apartment building. We are transitioning 1 building there to heat pumps, and then we're doing some other efficiency upgrades in 4 other buildings. And then up next for the city, Jackson Homestead and the Newton Community Farm are currently in design. and Pierce Elementary, our last school building with fuel oil. We last year commissioned a study to try to figure out what the options are to switch that building to all electric and what the kind of financial impacts of those would be. So we're on standby there while our partners at NPS kind of figure out what the next wave of school building projects is going to be with their long-range facility plan. Next slide. And we've also, as Ann mentioned, been continuing to pursue smaller scale projects. And the Green Communities Grant Program has been huge for us in that, enabling us to do a lot of LED retrofits, building weatherizations, and then most recently, we got a grant for $500,000 for the heat pump chiller at the library, which, because that was so large, we're now on 3-year hiatus from getting any further grants through the Green Communities Program. I think we're a year into that, so maybe 2 more years. But in the meantime, we're looking at the Climate Leader Community Program, which for the state is kind of an outgrowth of the Green Communities Program, where Green Communities focused really on energy efficiency. Climate Leader, the Climate Leader Community Program is also looking at emissions as well. So doing that, not only it's good for the bragging rights, but it would open up new sources of potential grant funding beyond just the green communities. And I'll just close by saying, kind of taken together with the major projects and the minor ones, since 2008, which is our kind of base year in the green communities reporting, our energy use has gone down 17.2%, while our overall building square footage has increased by 21.2%. And I just want to add that that increase generally includes the addition of air conditioning as well as in other city spaces that previously didn't have it. So it's pretty remarkable. With that, I will pass it over to Caroline.
And I'll take a moment to also say that we've also been joined online by Councilors Block and Greenberg. And I think that's, I think I've got everyone so far, but thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Caroline Weiss. Oh. Can I pull it closer? Is that better? Okay. I'm Caroline Weiss. I'm the Climate Action Coordinator, and I'd like to start with an update of the For Our Future program, which, as you may know, is the city's core climate program encouraging households and residents to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So the 4 key actions incorporated in this program are insulation, solar, heat pumps, or electrification in general, and greener transportation. Looking forward, this program will seek to incorporate home resilience resources to help homeowners understand information to make their homes more resilient to things like flooding and extreme heat, incorporating landscaping initiatives. Oh, is this better? That's really loud. Okay. As well as expanding our Energy Coach program to include home resilience. So on the note of the Energy Coach program, it's continuing to help residents take steps mentioned above, such as solar and heating. The coach program is run primarily by the city and 6 volunteer coaches, and we've recorded 741 consults since the program start in 2021. Numbers updated as of today. The primary topics that people come to the Energy Coach program with are solar and HVAC, so oftentimes looking to electrify heating in older homes. This slide may look familiar because the table is the same one displayed on the city's progress webpage under the Climate Action tab, as well as one that has been included in previous memos to the council, I believe. So I went through the 2025 column and attempted to find data the best that we could. Some key aspects to highlight include increased numbers for small-scale solar and large-scale solar installations in the city, as well as the increased percentage of electric vehicles registered in Newton, almost 10%. Some challenges we're still facing are numbers of heat pump installations, for which we have a variety of data sources, including the Heat Smart program, our own permit system, and Mass Save. None of these capture the full picture of heat pump installations in Newton, but they do show that we are making some progress and still have a long ways to go. Future data sources include those from the Community First partnership that Ann mentioned, as that program will be working closely to help residents take advantage of mass save initiatives, and the fossil fuel free demonstration program reporting that we will be required to do about electrification in new construction and major renovations. And just an hour ago, we got some data from National Grid, so I added in this table showing more information about the mass save side of things. So you can see we've had plenty of home energy assessments, installation, and gas to heat pump conversions in 2024, and those numbers are creeping up for 2025 in the past few months. So now to move on to the Climate Action Plan update process. We envision this new plan to be a roadmap for 2025 to 2030. It will also incorporate the actions set out in the climate change vulnerability assessment written in 2018. So really seeking to become more of a climate action and resilience plan to address our vulnerabilities to climate. It will also connect and integrate with existing plans, which I'll highlight in a few slides, as well as others will in the next presentation. And we envision this plan being more concise and very focused on our high leverage actions. This slide just goes to show a bit about adaptation and mitigation and how climate action will touch on both in our upcoming plans. So adaptation along that side is adjusting to current and future climate conditions. So that involves flood protection, emergency management, and so on. Whereas on the mitigation side, seeking to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions through electrification, building efficiency, sustainable transportation, and many others. And this graphic shows what we've come together in the city to do to address resilience and mitigation. So resilience is on the left, mitigation is on the right, and you can see that several departments are involved in efforts related to multiple plans that we will continue to touch on in our next presentation, but this really shows how the Climate Action Plan takes actions from each of these plans and helps facilitate interdepartmental coordination on both resilience and mitigation. So the update process began in April. Our team had department head conversations about the climate action, what departments are doing and planning to do in the next 5 years, and saw early stakeholder input from the Energy Commission and local residents. We have then gone through the first climate action plan and assessed our progress on each action item and identified new and ongoing initiatives. We then have drafted an outline, which we will use to inform the writing process. Once we have a draft, and along the way, we will continue to engage city departments, city council, and the community to ensure buy-in on our climate goals. Of course, we will incorporate feedback. Down the line, engage with a consultant on the design of the plan and a dashboard that I'm going to touch on in the next slide. Once the plan is published, of course, our focus will continue to be implementing our goals, updating our public dashboard and tracking of our goals, and holding regular meetings, ideally at least biannually, with department heads involved in climate action. So this climate action plan dashboard that we envision has become more common in neighboring municipalities and is a publicly available, readily updated dashboard, not limited to, but including multiple data sources as shown below and on the previous metric slide that I showed. Ultimately, we envision this dashboard to pool all of these sources, put them in an easy place for the public to see our progress on the climate action plan, and something that I and our team can regularly update. And that's it for our presentation. So I think we're happy to take questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So do we have questions, comments so far? Councilor Leary?
Thank you very much for that presentation. It is really impressive. And when I think back when I, one of the reasons why I ran for office back in 2013 was because climate change kept me up at night. And I had small kids and I was really worried about our future. And I knew that the city could do a lot. And boy, we really have. And when you just laid that out like that, it's really like, wow, we've come a long way in about the last 12 years. So there are a couple areas where I think we could improve on, or that I think they're a little tougher. And so we need to sort of work on them. One of them is the schools. I'd really like to see our new schools have washing capabilities so we can do a lot more reuse. And we should be designing those in our new schools. And we have a lot of them, and other city buildings, maybe perhaps as the senior center, so that we really, there was just an article in the Globe regarding Needham is one of the communities that has done this. They're using, they don't have the washing capabilities, so they're actually using Recircular, I think it's called. It's a nonprofit that actually does the washing for them. And they've saved a tremendous amount of trash. They had biodegradable stuff, but they had no way to get rid of it. So it was going in the trash. And there's 2 other communities as well that are also doing this. It would be much more efficient and cheaper for the city to have our own washing capability in new schools, but it's something to consider. Diverting organics is one area we really need to improve on, both residential and at the schools. And also just diverting also more recycling in a proper way so that it's actually getting recycled. That needs to be, and that's a whole other discussion. And then just a couple of other things. You mentioned biodiversity and the circular economy. I would, one of the initiatives I'm committing myself to this year is to improve our passive park areas, passive green spaces. So that we've done a great job in improving our athletic fields. And a lot of our passive open spaces are haven't been managed that well, or there's just a lack of resources to really do it. I'm thinking Nahanton Park has a beautiful meadow that's full of mugwort. It's a kind of invasive. It could be a wonderful pollinator garden, and I'd like to talk about also maybe having a citywide pollinator plan. So those are a couple of ideas that I'd love to see more action on. And I think I know Josh Morse has he's terrific with the things that he can do. So adding washing capability to our new schools, I think, is something we should make sure that's getting done. And it really needs to happen from the top down with a commitment from both the mayor and the superintendent. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Kalis. Followed by Councilors Danberg and Katz.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, who are you? What's your name again?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Caroline Weiss. I'm the Climate Action Coordinator.
which coordinator? It's
Climate Action Coordinator.
okay, okay.
So if you knew Leora Silks as energy coach, I've
Oh,
taken
okay.
that role over with doing less physical coaching, but more expansive into the climate action planning side of things.
Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Sam, I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the buildings that have reported versus the buildings that haven't. Why are there so many that are going to be coming in next year? And for the ones that have, are there any concerns, any red flags, any watchouts, or is it going very smoothly?
Yeah, great question, Counselor, and apologies if this wasn't clear in how I stated it. So this year, the first year of the program, the buildings that are over 100,000 square feet non-residential are required to report by September 15th. So that amounts to 46 of those buildings. And then the ordinance specifies next year, September 15th, 2026, the remaining buildings over 20,000 square feet. So that's around 340. So at this point,
Okay.
we're still trying to kind of get the word out. So nobody's reported yet. We're still kind of developing the tools to try to assist people through that process. So more to come on that in the near future.
Okay.
That really right now, that's what our focus on is really trying to set up those 46 buildings to be able to meet that reporting deadline this year to kind of get us off to a good start. So
Okay, so you feel like you're establishing a process by which next year it'll be smoother for the 340?
yeah, right now we are just about to put out a guide on how to report that really takes you through detailed, how to set up an account in Energy Star Portfolio Manager, how to add buildings, how to add energy use meters, how to, get your data from utilities, just that goes through all of that. So we're putting that out hopefully this week. And then June 17th, we're going to have kind of a drop-in training where literally we're just going to show how to set up an account. If people find that helpful, to tune in and watch that. to wrap their heads around it, and also if they have any other questions. So we're just kind of getting moving on all these pieces. Hoping that this year we can get those 46 to report, learn some lessons, and then next spring, I anticipate there's going to be a lot more people that have a lot more questions. The 46 largest buildings in the city often have, people on staff, they have expertise. They may use Energy Star Portfolio Manager already to benchmark their buildings. So there will be people that need more assistance next year.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would just suggest, I think drop-in is a great idea. I also think you might consider offering a class, a tutorial, something, even if it's a half an hour or 45 minutes, see how that goes, see how many buildings or representatives show up. So then next year you'll have different options that are tested and which ones work and which ones don't.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor Danberg.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. First of all, thank you for this wonderful report. It's very impressive to see in such a short time how far we've come. The fact that we've got 40% of the city's energy that is now being generated on our rooftops is incredible. Not even considering the amount of carbon that we're sequestering, just the money alone, which is something that we can really sink our teeth into, I think, in this city, is very impressive. It looks like if we did 100%, we could approach $1 million a year in today's dollars. That number is going to go up, is going to continue to go up, up and up every year. So every rooftop that we can use, every solar panel that we can install is going to bring us closer and closer toward bringing that number down to a very impressive number in the Commonwealth and I think nationally. Do you have any idea what square footage, how many square feet the 46,000, the 46 buildings represent? How many square feet of building?
I actually haven't done the calculation. I could do some quick back of the envelope math, but the majority of the 46 are in the 100 to 200,000 square foot range. And then there's a good handful of them that are up there, closer 300, 400,000.
Okay.
So if you do the math on that, it's a lot.
And we have several institutes of higher learning in the city, and I assume that a number of those buildings are probably on those grounds.
Yep.
Is that the case?
Including not just higher learning, but a number of our buildings, our schools are.
And our
included,
schools.
in that
Yes.
as well, yeah.
Yes. And talking about our schools, I also read the article that I'm sure many of us have read about Needham and what they're doing in using silver trays and having them back picked up because they don't have washing capabilities. I second the comment that it would be, I think, a forward-thinking idea to try and get washing capability in our schools. Now that we are designing more elementary schools, we should do the right thing and we should add that capability. Composting was brought up by Councilor Leary, and that is near and dear to my heart in many ways and for many reasons. The city of New York in 2014 instituted a law that required any cafeteria or food producing location that generated a half ton of food waste per week to remove it from the waste stream. And a half ton a week, I think they equated to something like a 50-seat restaurant. We have a number of those in the city, and certainly every cafeteria that we have in every school would easily go over that. So if we could start, I would vote for a pilot program that we would start in the schools. And one of the ways that I think we could help ourselves do that is by having environmental clubs within the schools that take the lead on this with faculty advisors. I spoke with one of the private schools in the Chestnut Hill, spoke with the teacher who was the club advisor of their environmental club. And they instituted this program. And when kids do it, when it comes from the kids, it will be a success. Because kids want to do this. My own kids and our own grandchildren and our children are inclined, much more inclined than any of us over 30 are to handle something like this and actually make it work. So I would encourage us to do that and have that as a goal for next year, a pilot program. Thank you.
Counselor Getz, followed by Counselors Maliki and Krinsman, please.
Thank you for the presentation. And these questions are for Sam. And welcome.
Thank you.
You in this slot.
In this spot. Yeah.
Good. These data points in the table, just in terms of the metrics, the 2025, the reporting due June 30th. So you're waiting for that content to be generated?
Are you?
I'm on page 16 of the deck.
Yeah. Do you want to bring that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat it?
No, on page 16, there's a chart
Yeah.
and there's quite a bit of data.
Yes.
missing. So is it just because we're waiting for the cycle to end and then they will?
So I
inform?
had trouble getting my hands on Mass Save data since starting this position. So the slide after it is, I apologize that it's not in the packet. I added it just an hour ago when I finally heard back from our representative in National Grid, but that's where I did get some Mass Save recent data on home energy assessments, installation, and heat pump conversions. In the chart, it also mentions CFP data, which stands for Community First Partnership, which will provide Mass Save data from that team that Green Newton and us in the city are supporting a new energy advocate who will be directing people to Mass Save, and then Mass Save will report back to us with the data of all Newtonians that have gone through that program.
Okay.
And then on the new construction side, that was something else that I currently didn't have numbers yet, but we will be going through that process in the next month of pulling data for the electrification ordinance, mandatory reporting for the state.
Oh,
So where it says FFF, that's fossil fuel free demonstration program, and something that will be one of my focuses in the next few weeks.
Great, great. And then, Sam,
Yeah.
you mentioned an installation, a solar array installation, and you mentioned Echo Bridge. What was that?
Not at Echo Bridge. Sorry, Camp Echo Bridge is I think it's a Athletes Unlimited affiliated Parks and Rec summer camp at
Okay.
Mason Rice. So we're doing the rooftop there this summer, and I just mentioned we got to coordinate that a little bit with them. But so all's not smooth totally when you just wait for school to end. There's also other stuff going on in our school building. So that's all that was. Yeah.
Right, because it just triggered me, in terms of.
Do you have any
like-
ideas for Echo Bridge? Let me know, because that's a
Yeah, there's quite a bit of expanse there, but
yeah.
no,
No.
they wouldn't be compatible. All right, and then the last question, just in terms of this flow chart, just what is the timeline? Is there any sense of the timeline?
Our goal is to make it happen as soon as possible, but definitely by the end of the year, as the current plan expires in 2025. I came on in February, and then the team really hit the ground running to get this plan developed by the end of 2025. The goal.
All right, yeah, thank you, of course, thank you.
All set? Great. Counselor Maliki.
Thanks. I'd like to second Councilor Leary's comments about the schools and the dishwashing lack of capability and wishing we could do a better job there going forward. But I had a question ever since the House passed their version of the horrible bill, getting rid of geothermal and other clean energy incentives. Geothermal's, I guess, would be accepted if it were completed by 28 and started within 60 days or something of the bill passing, should it actually get passed. If the Senate does not sort of stop that, are our geothermal projects at the schools at risk in any way, financially, or can we still go ahead with them?
I'm happy to answer that question, Counselor. Very good question, one that we track very closely. This is Josh Morris, Building Commissioner for the city. So we are doing ground source heat pumps or geothermal at Franklin and Countryside as part of those projects. The projects are fully funded, and the hope would be that we would be able to secure federal direct pay incentives. But should those disappear, the projects are still fully funded. They would move forward. It would not jeopardize those projects. What we're hearing, and my information is as recent as last week, is that and as you all know, things change daily in DC. But the latest that I'm hearing is that there's a strong likelihood that geothermal for the direct pay incentives will continue, and that it should be viable for those projects. So we are proceeding and documenting under the assumption that we can get those rebates. Quite frankly, it's a relatively small amount of work for a potential significant return on investment. So fingers crossed, and I'll keep you posted if I hear anything different.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All set, Counselor?
Mm.
Great. Counselor Krinsman.
Thank you. I think this question is for Sam. I have only one question, so I'll try to be brief, and I hope the answer is brief as well. But regarding the solar arrays and the solar portfolio, my recollection is that it was, sort of years ago that we started approving these and even had some special approvals on some special docket items. And then it seemed to take a long time to get those up and running, actually longer than we had expected when we talked during deliberation of those items about the time frame.
Yep.
But it looks like a bunch are going up now, which is fantastic. So my question is really, were there delays in the start because of RFP or a process like that? And are we now using a single vendor to do all of the arrays? I know there are maintenance contracts that go with these things, but are we using a single vendor to do all the projects, and it's just a question of when the vendor has time, or I mean, I know in the case of the senior center, it's or the Cooper Center for Active Living, when it's going to be constructed. That's obviously a holdback there. But are we using one vendor, and is it just a question of when the vendor has time to get to the projects that we're hopeful will come online in the near future?
Great question, Counselor. Sorry. Great question, Counselor. My understanding of the history is it was 2019 when the council approved a good tranche of the solar phase 3, and we moved forward with some of those that were through Amoresco, and we were moving forward through a different developer, and that turned out to not pan out, and we looked kind of for somebody to do that work, and ultimately we went back to Amoresco for some of it, and then we found a new developer in the process, which is Select. They did the Williams rooftop there, and they'll be doing a handful of the ones that are currently on the docket for this summer. Select, I think, is based in Hopkinton. They kind of a local company that we found to be motivated, helpful, collaborative. So it's good to have two, just in case one doesn't pan out. And all developers have work that they need to do and timelines and prioritization. So it's good to have two. So you're not, counting on one developer to do 20 projects here in the city. So yeah, hope that's
okay. And so then does each developer, I guess you call them a developer, solar developer, does each developer, are they each responsible then for the maintenance of their own projects, or do we sort of have a maintenance contract with each of them for any of the solar arrays? Because I know, replacement parts become an issue at some point.
Yeah, great question, Counselor. For all of our projects so far, we've done PPA, power purchase agreement, agreements with the developers whereby they own the solar panels and we purchase the power that they produce. So they're theirs, they maintain them. And it's in their interest that they're producing as much power as possible because that's how they make a little money off us. So, yeah.
Okay, so we don't actually own any of the solar arrays in the city, or are there some that we do own?
There may be, Josh, do you know the answer to that?
I do. Here's your trivia question.
I don't know the answer. That's why I asked.
It's a good one. So we do actually own a couple. They're very small. We own one at Newton South High School and one at Oak Hill Middle School. Both of those were installed coming up on close to 20 years ago. So they're about due to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I've gone on long enough. I appreciate it. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Josh.
I could just add with the Cooper Center project, we are looking at possibly doing an ownership model there as well, just given the size of the project and the kind of way the PPA rate sort of was looking, that might be in our interest. So we're exploring that.
Thanks.
Fantastic. So I just have, from my own perspective, just a couple of comments, and then I do have a question. First, when we start to talk about or think about the dashboard, right, the reporting element to this, first off, I love the fact that you're including the fact that that is going to be made publicly available, hopefully in some prominent way on our website. One thought, I hope we're going to make that a little bit or as visual when it comes to quantitative metrics as we possibly can. So that's fantastic. You know, red, amber, green type of situation, right? Or kind of, you know, throttles, that sort of thing to kind of help people understand how we're doing towards our own goals, right? As set forth in the CAP, that'd be fantastic. The other question that I have is, or the question that I have has to do with the Berto Commission. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe just give us a 1 minute, 2, 3 tops, right? Just a brief kind of summary of where we are with the commission, getting people kind of seated on that commission and how their work is going to dovetail into the questions that Councilor Kalis was asking and the publication you're starting, I think you said next week.
Yeah, so great question, Councilor. As it's kind of laid out in the ordinance, the Berto Advisory Commission is charged with advising the Berto administrator in the development of the regulations. So the way we envision that process is, and in terms of kind of the seating of the Berto Advisory Commission, I believe President Laredo's nominees have already been approved by the council. Mayor Fuller will be making her appointments in the near future. I can't give you an exact date, but we expect that to happen. And so over the summer, that commission will be kind of filled out with the full membership and aim to convene it in September. That's not to say between now and then we won't be doing anything. We'll try to do some research, wrap our heads around regulations and looking in particular at some other communities that have done them well to try to have some good stuff to start with so that when we go and get the advisory commission going, you know, we have something that we're working on that they can be advising and making recommendations on. Starting in September will kind of allow us to get through this first year of reporting and focus on that. And then we can have a focused, thorough process through September, through the winter, through the new year, where, you know, it's kind of an iterative process with some public meetings along the way. I mean, all of the advisory commission meetings will be public. It's a public body, but we'll be inviting, I envision public input for specific provisions and in the regulations with, yeah, the ordinance does specify some requirements around enacting the regulations as well. So the advisory commission, the Berto administrator will come to the city council to brief the council on when we have kind of a draft final version of it. And then there's a month kind of written testimony portion. And then there's between the council meeting and when they kind of get enacted, that's a 90-day period there. So back that out from when, and so we're looking, yeah, probably next spring, but I think that does give us a good amount of time before 2027 is the first year where emission standards sort of come into play. So we can have some good guideposts in place before then.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I don't see any more hands. Oh, now I do. Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one more question. The schools have the green captains now in each of the schools. And I was wondering, how much do they coordinate with you? I know the schools have their own teams as well, but do you guys talk to each other? And do you know what the green captains are working on? Do you know what resources they may need? And I just wanted to know, because that's a fairly new program and I think it's a great idea. But I want to make sure that it can be as successful as possible.
Absolutely. It has been a great program. I've just been introduced to it since March, I believe. I attended a Green Captains meeting and was able to be introduced to them and learn what they were working on, which at that point was mostly around Earth Day activities. Both Newton South and Newton North hosted Earth Day festivals / sustainability days that myself and other city staff, including those from sustainable materials management, transportation, and planning, were there and able to table with students and meet the Green Captains and students in the environmental clubs. Anne and I also regularly attend the school sustainability working group, where things like the pilot composting program and dishwashing capabilities have been and are being discussed. I know that our director of sustainability, Stephanie, actually went and toured Needham's facilities that have been mentioned a few times. Essentially, the Green Captains, I believe, are in their either first or second year. It's been going well. There's teachers that are funded through the Helpsy bins, which are textile collections, and they meet a couple times a year. Like I said, I attended one of those meetings, and we regularly attend the monthly school sustainability working groups, which one of those Green Captains, Andrew Thompson, attends and provides updates.
That would be great, because I sometimes feel like I have to really dig to find out what the schools are doing, or maybe just attend their meetings. I know that they do have a monthly sustainable meeting that's difficult for me to get to. But I would like to also just be able to, maybe you could include that information. Is it included in any of your documents
Yes.
there with the schools?
Well, it will be incorporated into the climate action plan. I'm now realizing we should have had a slide on schools, because school sustainability is one of those department head meetings that our team conducted. So we will be working in the school sustainability goals with the climate action plan. Sorry, I was going to also mention that Stephanie Gilman also maintains a website on school sustainability that you can find through the Newton Public Schools website, and she's working on updating that throughout the next year. We've
Okay,
been
great.
talking
I'll
about
check that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
great questions. Thank you.
Councilor Danberg.
Thank you. If we are toward the end of this discussion, I wanted to make sure that we also touched on the importance down the road, and I hope it's not too far down the road, of getting into residential reporting, required residential reporting. There is a tremendous amount of help out there. The data is very easy to obtain. It's on our bills, and the Eversource has said that they would be very willing to cooperate with the city of Newton in helping that to happen. So just putting a bug in your ear about moving into, as we expand the commercial, let's also not forget that it's our goal to move into residential as soon as we can.
All set? Great. So I don't think we have any further questions online or in the chamber. I think that a motion to hold is in order so that we could bring it back, perhaps Q3.
I'll move to hold.
Great, we have a motion to hold. Do you you want to take the vote in
Yeah,
PS?
that was a motion in public facilities, yes? Or is a motion in ZAP, which,
Or both?
or both?
I will move to hold in PF and move to hold in ZAP.
Okay, well, let's take a vote in PF then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's, Katie, I guess you know how many of us are here. 7-0. Thank you.
Great, and I shall take that same vote in zoning and planning. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, opposed? Or abstentions? We're also unanimous in ZAP. How many is that? I'm just curious.
7-0.
Great, thank you. All right, and I believe the next two items are going to be effectively taken up together because the resiliency topics kind of dovetail with the conversation that I expect that we're going to get into here when we start to talk about residential use of electricity. But let me read these two items into the record before we get rolling. The first item is 23624, discussion on climate resiliency to hear updates and plans from the city. As well as we also have item 32224, which is a discussion regarding the residential use of electricity. Some other folks, myself included, have been referring to this as Bordeaux for everyone. But with that said, who is kicking us off? Is that you, Jonathan? It is. So you getting to the podium. Great. Take it away.
All right, wonderful. Let's see. Okay, did we have a clicker? Thank you so much. All right. We'll full screen it. Just by way of introduction, I'm Jonathan Yo, the Chief Operating Officer of the city. Thank you so much. And with me tonight are a bunch of commissioners and directors, including Josh Morse, Commissioner of Public Works, Shauna Sullivan, Commissioner of Public Works. I think I said Public Works for Josh, Public Buildings, we all know that. Bernie McDonald is or was here. He's taking care of the dog downstairs. Our Deputy Commissioner Shinyu Lau, our Commissioner of Health and Human Services is here. Barney Heath, our Director of Planning and Development is here. Of course, our co-directors of Sustainability, Ann and Sam, you just heard from, and Caroline. Not with us tonight, key members of our team are Jennifer Steele, our Conservation Director, Mark Welsh, our Urban Forest Director, Luis Perez Demarisi, our Urban Lands Director, and Chief Gentile, and Assistant Chief Mike Bianchi from Newton Fire, who serve as the city's emergency management directors who get involved in many of these issues. Okay, let's see how the clicker's doing here. All right. All right, let's advance it. It doesn't seem to be working. All right, if you all remember, over the last 8 years, during the Mayor Fuller's administration, we have used a dozen overarching external goals in terms of managing all of our city programs. I've circled in the upper left corner, really 3 that really focus on climate resiliency and adaptation issues. One is directly there, and then one has more to do with our infrastructure, public buildings, streets and sidewalks, as well as our parks and open spaces. Next slide. As I think Sam and Caroline have mentioned, we are treating sustainability here in the city of Newton in really two categories that are interrelated, climate adaptation and resilience, which is really our ability to prepare and adapt and rebound to our changing climate. And then, of course, our climate mitigation and greenhouse gas emission reduction efforts on the right. The key departments, as I've mentioned, really are Public Works, Parks and Rec, Health and Human Services, Planning, Fire Emergency Management, the Mayor's Office / Sustainability, public buildings, ISD, with help from many others. Next slide. You saw this slide earlier. This really shows the complexity of the efforts here on both topics. On the left is adaptation and resilience. You'll see some of the key departments and all the multitudes of plans and ordinances that they are implementing either individually or together with other departments. Next slide. Recently, Mayor Fuller was with, there's Mayor Wu signing this document, recommitting the Metro Mayors Coalition to climate resilience and decarbonization. Mayor Fuller was not, of course, they focused the pictures on Mayor Wu, but Mayor Fuller is signing this document and really committing to as municipalities to move forward on these really important topics. Next slide. This is just a summary of some of the key climate resilience related planning efforts over the last number of years. And it really started, a lot of this started in the or it started really in 2010. But in 2018, we finalized the Climate Change Vulnerability Plan, which is still our active program. We did a Hazard Mitigation Plan update in 2019. We did the CAP 1.0 2019 as well. Open Space and Rec Plan 2020. Public Works finished their Stormwater Management Plan in 2013, which was really an update of their 2015 plan. And then we have a number of really important plans that are under, we're working on this current year, including a comprehensive emergency management plan, CAP 2.0, as you heard, a hazard mitigation plan, a municipal vulnerability plan, which is really the climate change vulnerability plan part 2, as required by the state. As you all know, as the ordinances come through the city council, 2022, we passed the new stormwater ordinances and regulations, which are incredibly important in helping address stormwater here in the city. We updated the incredible tree preservation ordinance in 2023, and then created and updated the floodplain ordinances, both the local and the FEMA ones earlier this year. Next slide. The CCVA, the Climate Change Vulnerability Assessment, is really the key, probably the key document in terms of looking at climate resilience in the city. We really went through the details with the help of MAPC, an expert team from MAPC, through a public process of looking at climate impacts on everything from our built environment to our natural resources and how we could adapt and to get ready for some of these changes, and came up with a series of recommendations and planning over the next 5 years, which we've been very busy implementing. Next slide. The CCVA really went into great detailed analysis on everything from flooding, flood claims, flood mapping, to historic resources, and really looking at the complexities of this city of 18 square miles, where we have, where we all developed subdivisions and homes in low-lying areas, near rivers and streams, and have built different types of critical infrastructure in certain areas. And we're also working to rehabilitate some of our key infrastructure, like the Bellows Pond Dam, which is over 100 years old and needs to be addressed critically to address climate change. Next slide. If you've looked at some of these documents, they're all online, but really there's great detail on facility mapping, flood zones, and hazard locations, and what types of events might cause problems for these pieces of infrastructure. Next slide. In 2019, led by the fire department with an interagency team, we updated the hazard mitigation plan, which is a required document for the state. Chief Gentile, who is unable to attend. Chief, you're not here online, are you? The chief is in the process of beginning this update for 2025 to really look at long-term strategies to reduce or eliminate the risks from future disasters. And I'll go into a couple of those very quickly here, and really providing proactive strategies to reduce the damage. Next slide. These are just some of the events. If those of you who like natural disasters, here they are. These are things that hit Newton between 1991 and 2017. It's missing a couple of the more recent incidents. These are federally declared emergencies that impacted specifically here in Newton. They're everything from blizzards to hurricanes to general flooding events, and some nor'easters as well, more blizzards down there. So, you know, Newton has its share of natural disasters. Next slide. The hazard risks were really analyzed in the planning process, as you'll see, top of the list: flooding, dam failures, hurricanes, tornadoes are actually a serious risk here. Fortunately, we haven't had any recently here. Earthquakes are a semi-serious problem. We have other issues. You know, it doesn't rate brush fires and heat events as serious, but you know, I think with climate change working its way here in Newton, those could rise up as well. Next slide. And this really rated how the city of Newton was doing on these different topics, from flood hazards to dams to wind hazards and winters, and really tried to analyze how we were doing on various programs where we needed to improve things. Next slide. As I mentioned, Chief Gentile will be doing, updating the hazard mitigation plan. He is also finalizing a comprehensive emergency management plan for the city, which is a best practice for cities to be doing, which really is the nuts and bolts of a coordinated framework of how the city prepares for, responds, and recovers from a range of emergencies and disasters. And everything right down to the shelters and who calls who and all those kinds of things. Next slide. All right, I'm going to invite up Commissioner Lau to talk briefly about the role of her department. Thanks.
Good evening, councilors. Can you hear me? I'm Shinyi. Perfect. I'm Shinyi Lau. I'm the Commissioner of Health and Human Services. Oh, sorry, I'm a little shorter than Jonathan. All right, I'm Shinyi Lau. I'm the Commissioner of Health and Human Services. The role of Health and Human Services is to focus on the impacts of climate change on health and well-being, some of which are illustrated in this diagram here, as well as community preparedness and response to extreme weather, vector-borne diseases, water contamination, and other health hazards that are being exacerbated by climate change. Much of our preparedness and response work is multi-hazard. It includes strategies such as education and messaging to the community on topics such as personal preparedness, actions to take in response to a particular event, and if applicable, symptoms to watch for. We do tailor our messages to different audiences with a particular focus on those who are at higher risk for more severe health outcomes. We also work on connecting residents, and particularly vulnerable residents, with resources that are relevant to the particular issue. If needed and appropriate, we open warming or cooling centers, reunification centers, or shelters. And lastly, we provide health-related guidance to city departments, schools, businesses, and community-based organizations. This may be things like what to do if there's extreme heat for outdoor workers, whether to continue to hold outdoor recess, that type of thing. Of course, we're staying up to date on the latest science and trends and adjusting our approaches as needed. For the most part to date, we haven't had to adjust our approaches too much. It's more of a same approach, but the tick-borne disease season, for example, is longer. So starting that messaging earlier and not stopping it until the tick season is over. We are also staying informed on emerging issues such as poor outdoor air quality related to forest fires. This is something our public health colleagues on the West Coast have a lot more experience with, and we are learning from them. Unfortunately, that is becoming more frequent in this area, so we're paying attention to things like that.
Great, thank you. Just so you're aware, I spent years in the forests of central Massachusetts, never got a tick. Started this job within 3 weeks, I had a tick on my neck. So they are here in Newton, and beware. Next slide. All right, as I mentioned earlier, we've done some work on updating the floodplain ordinances. So Jennifer Steele, working now with ISD and everyone else who implements building rules in this city, is implementing these new rules. And I think so far off to a very good start. Next slide. As I mentioned, the state has upped its game in terms of municipal vulnerability preparedness work. And they also have great grant programs that we've been taking advantage of. There's us in the middle. I circled us. We have taken advantage of the MVP grants recently to get over $1.4 million worth of work done at Cheesecake Brook. This includes the Great Basin that we're building. I think I have a picture. Go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. That's a couple weeks ago. But further progress has been made. This is the basin underneath the Albemarle synthetic turf field next to Craft Street. This will be taking the stormwater coming off Craft Street and filtering it before it gets into Cheesecake Brook. And this is, I forget how many pounds, also phosphorus removal this is getting us. This is really helping us both with flooding as well as with phosphorus removal. Next slide. All right, flooding. While we're there, before I get to Commissioner Sullivan, I grabbed a few photos. Councilor Maliki, you'll see one of your photos, or it's a video of yours, but I took a still of it. There's the car in Cheesecake Brook from August 2021. There's Border Street 2023. Newton Free Library parking lot in August. That is Councilor Maliki running, Councilor Mickley running across the street there, unfortunately. And there on the bottom right is my house, the front of my house, Lowell Ave, December 2023 flooding as well. So we have flooding in the city. We've always had flooding in the city. It's getting more challenging. We have a number of things going on. Next slide. And I'm going to invite up Commissioner Sullivan.
Good evening, councilors. I'm going to do a quick run through on our stormwater ordinance, our Bulls Pond Dam project, culvert and stream cleaning, catch basin cleaning program, our removing impervious surface area, stormwater ordinance, the potential EPA residual designation authority permit. Start with our stormwater infrastructure improvement. Could you go back a slide, please? Our stormwater water infrastructure improvement plan. We are currently working with our consultant, Woodard and Curran, to update the 2015 plan to add new projects as we've completed.
Go 3 slides.
As we've completed.
The other direction. Keep going. All right, there you go.
A significant amount of our projects in the 2015 plan. As Jonathan spoke to the Bulls Dam project, this is a critical project. We are under an order from the Office of Dam Safety because of the condition of the dam. They are asking us for a schedule and maybe imposing fines if we do not move forward with this project, because there is a significant risk to property and people. This year in FY26, we received $500,000 in funding for stream and culvert cleaning to improve our stormwater capacity throughout the city. This past year, we received an additional $500,000 to do catch basin cleaning for every catch basin in the city once a year. We have been working to remove impervious surface during our paving project. I don't know if anyone's seen the Arnold Road Country Club bump out that is now all grass versus pavement. And I'm unsure how deep you want me to get into the stormwater ordinance and what improvements that has brought by requiring developments to retain stormwater on site. It has improved our stormwater capacity in the public infrastructure.
You can go back 2 slides, Katie, there. Yeah. Just to clarify, in the last 2 budgets, as the commissioner has mentioned, the mayor has worked with the department to really focus on how we can improve stormwater management on the ground here in the city. So this includes everything from the stream cleaning to the catch basin cleaning, and making sure that we have the staff to do those kinds of that work, and or the consultants to do that work. Councilor Kalis knows well that we did I think a pretty good job of cleaning the stream near your house that was caked with many decades of silt. That's the kind of work that we need to be doing, because those are the kind of projects that can help address some localized flooding in some of these fairly well-developed watersheds. So the catch basin cleaning as well is incredibly important, especially in the fall, even in the spring when there's a lot of material that can clog a basin and create localized flooding. So those are important things. And the update to the plan, if you can go 2 slides down, that Woodard and Curran is helping us with. We did get we just recently got a state grant to move this forward. I believe the council has approved this grant acceptance, have we?
So we've received 2 grants for
That's
this
right.
assessment. One is pending, the other was recently approved this fiscal year,
Yep.
and we are moving forward with our plan.
So this really is going to follow up on some of our most recent work with a 20-year capital improvement plan it really will be a significant amount of work. I will say that I think we've all warned you where water, sewer, and stormwater rates are heading. In particular, stormwater rates are going in the future because there is so much work to be done in this city. So, all right, let's go on. Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Next slide. Urban forestry, I think I just mentioned this, that the strengthened tree preservation ordinance has created incentives for tree preservation during development. The director of urban forestry, Mark Welsh, really believes that he is seeing it happen with various developments, that trees are being preserved because of the financial incentives that we created during the update to that process. Increased fees to the tree fund from major projects like LaSalle and Boston College and some other big ones are also providing funds to the tree fund for important work of the department. This year, we increased staffing in the forestry unit for better tree care and pruning. We reduced the reliance on outside contractors in order to really up our game in terms of tree care and pruning. So you're already starting to see that out in the field. And I'll get to land acquisition in a second. Next slide. Oh, there we go. In 2020, we updated our open space and recreation plan, which is a state required plan to be done every 7 now, maybe it's 10 years that they're allowed it. As part of this, land acquisition of forest land and open space is a key part of this. It's difficult to do in this city because it's mostly well-developed. But bottom right corner, Kessler Woods, some of you were on the council when that happened. Councilor Albright, 2015, 21 acres. That's a really neat property. Jennifer Steele is working to get a trail through that property as well. And then upper right corner is Webster Woods. Many of you remember from 2019, 15 acres to prevent that from being developed, those steep hillsides in the middle of our big city forest owned by 3 agencies. Next slide. All right, I think I just want to mention that the capital improvement planning process, the development of the capital plan, a number of my key members of our capital planning team, Josh Morse and Commissioner Sullivan and others have been heavily involved in this over the last really 10 years now. But we do involve environmental sustainability as a key factor in the point scoring system for projects. Next slide. You probably remember this from my CIP presentation, but Commissioner Morse, working with his design teams and with our DPW, has incorporated flood management, stormwater management into all 5 of these projects. So Countryside, as I mentioned earlier, a very important project. We got that school out of the floodplain there. Cooper Center has stormwater management. Lincoln Elliott has a big system underground. That school will be opening in a few months. And Horace Mann and Franklin as well. In addition to the great energy work you heard earlier from Sam and Caroline, we're also doing stormwater work at these locations. Next slide. And Luis Perez Demaricis did some great work up at Crystal Lake, which is really our gem of a lake here in the city, which we've done many different projects over the years to protect this urban oasis and to prevent runoff and the climate change from overrunning this little pond. Next slide. As well as up at the Burr School, some of these athletic field projects here and at McGrath Park, we're incorporating stormwater improvements, rain gardens into these projects. Next slide. And again, I just want to mention that there'll be a lot going on this year and next year, and the City Council and key stakeholders and the public will be involved in these processes. CAP 2.0, Hazard Mitigation, Municipal Vulnerability Plan, MVP. So going forward, you'll be hearing a lot about these issues, and you'll be able to get involved and have a say. And I think that might set my last slide. Yeah, that's it. And so we are all here to answer any questions you have.
Fantastic. A lot of information there. I will open it up to questions from any of the counselors at this point. Counselor Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. So I went to a webinar last week that the conservators did on Cheesecake Brook.
Mhm.
And one of the things that was said during that is that some of our neighboring communities have changed their stormwater ordinance so that they no longer allow residents to have overflow stormwater flow into the cities or towns' stormwater system. And it's come to our attention recently in public facilities that we do allow that in Newton. And I was wondering if Commissioner Sullivan, if you've entertained any notions about changing our ordinance to stop allowing that overflow to go into our systems.
The only time that we allow it is when there is no other option. It does require city council approval. It really is a case-by-case basis, and it really is if you cannot put any type of stormwater retention on your property. And there is no other option.
Okay, so it would be interesting to talk to these neighbors. I think Waltham was one of them, and I forget the other one, might have been Watertown. That it'd be interesting, don't they have, we have a lot of places where there's a high water table, so I know that that's a problem for us. Maybe they don't have that problem.
They may not. I'm happy to talk with Watertown and Waltham. And they may allow some relief through city council approval. I would need to see their ordinances
Okay.
to comment.
It's just worth looking into because we've become keenly aware of that lately.
Happy to look into it.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually had a very similar question to Councilor Albright regarding retention of stormwater on site, which is one of our goals. Particularly on undeveloped sites, should we be identifying areas, wet areas or areas of very high groundwater where perhaps we should be wary about allowing building there for those reasons? Especially if it requires a very sophisticated and expensive stormwater system. I know in land use, we actually denied a project on 41 Washington Street regarding the water issues there. So I just wondering if we would have, maybe look into a plan. Are there areas that we should keep green, could be open space, that those kinds of areas? And I wanted a little more specifics about codifying existing stormwater management policy requirements. I was wondering if you could give an example for some of the things that we're working on requiring with that, like the specifics would help me understand it a little bit better.
On the last one, the
Co-
codification, so we have we have stormwater regulations.
Right.
Which require, and we're detailing with every single project what happens with those, and so that we're able to track those requirements and make sure that they're being upheld. So the question
I just,
there is,
I was wondering if we needed to do, like, are we need to do additional work to make sure that we're following state guidelines?
oh, we're way beyond state guidelines.
Okay.
Definitely. There's not very many communities doing what we're doing, for sure. And on your first question, during the permitting process through ISD and engineering, a lot of this evaluation has to happen anyways, in terms of if you're going to attempt to put in a basement, and there's a lot of things that you need to run through first. So we certainly have all the floodplains. We have all of that. All of those issues are mapped. We know where the low-lying areas are. So I think if somebody walks into ISD with there's not a lot of undeveloped properties here in the city, but if there was one found and somebody came in to develop something in a low-lying area, they potentially are going to run into trouble in getting it approved.
Okay, because
Yeah.
we're running to that exact situation actually in public facilities.
Okay.
So. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Counselor Kalis.
Thank you. That was a great presentation, so thank you for that, with all the different departments involved. Is the catch basin program yearly now? Is that new?
It is new. We were only doing about a third of our catch basins annually.
That's
And
great.
this past year, we've increased it to cleaning every catch basin
Excellent.
and taking condition assessment.
Thanks. The other question I have is, I didn't see, and maybe I just missed it, a slide on phosphorus. And I remember you talking about phosphorus, I don't know, in some meetings in the past, and I walked out kind of flabbergasted at how much it's going to cost us. So I'm just wondering what the plan is, if that's incorporated in what you're doing.
It is.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too much into the details of that one tonight. It's a little overwhelming, but in many areas where we can do something to help reduce phosphorus runoff into the Charles River, it will help with stormwater. Those projects will help with stormwater, some more than others. So certainly where we can get double points, really, we will.
Okay, but that hasn't gone away as an issue.
It has not gone away as an issue. The new administration has not waved a wand and made it go away at this point. And we are still proceeding to apply for an alternative schedule, one that is more reasonable, hopefully, that we think the city could to make its way towards achieving.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Getz.
About retention systems. And, because we talked a little bit about it at some point in terms of using some of our open space to, actually hold water. Where are we going to see that kind of planning, and, how will that evolve?
Well, we're seeing it at Albemarle right there. It's a great example. And we've done it. McGrath Field in West Newton there's going to be a basin underneath that field. Now, as DPW has been working on some intersections, they've been able to create some swales and or rain gardens to take runoff in areas that were previously paved. We're looking at pervious areas on city property where we can find them that we can convert to green space. Let's see, other good examples, underground systems where we can put them in. There's a project we're going to be working on soon at Crystal Lake to catch more runoff before it gets into the lake and to treat it underground. So there's a variety of techniques, and different ones work in different circumstances. So, you know, in the end, it really is about finding the right spaces to do it, and then having the resources, the money to make it happen, and or get the grants. And we're trying hard on grants as well. So, yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I don't see any further hands. I do now. Counselor Baker.
I'm sorry. Let me see if I can be heard. So one of the questions that I think we're all worried about is if there is a climate-related disaster, the ability of the city to respond versus where we can rely on the state and the federal government. You want to say a word about sort of what our emergency response systems are and how we're going to try and
Sure.
manage that uncertainty?
If Chief Gentile was here, I would turn it over to him, but we have an emergency management director. We have a plan of action. We have an emergency management operations center at fire headquarters. We are very fortunate in having the local infrastructure to respond to things. Now, as you know, many circumstances can overwhelm any municipality. However prepared we are, we might need mutual aid from neighboring communities and or state assistance. Occasionally, you'll need, you know, federal assistance, but that's a pretty rare situation around here. MEMA, I know the chief stays in great close touch with his team at MEMA, and they play an important role in different types of responses. So we have a plan. As I mentioned, we're going to be updating our plan this current year. We can certainly have a meeting with the city council and go through it. I think that might be an interesting discussion to have at some point later in the year.
Thank you. Counselor Humphrey.
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to go back to the question that Councilor Leary had raised earlier. As you said, there's not a huge number of properties that are undeveloped, but it's not zero. And there definitely have been some, I guess, especially when it comes to lot subdivision or something like that, where if they're willing to put in the money to comply with the ordinances that we have on the books, they can go ahead and build some huge thing, in some cases right in a floodplain or just about, you know, something that's maybe technically just outside, but for all intents and purposes will be soon.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I think there is something to what she was bringing up, which is like, should we be considering zoning out some of these last few areas that, you know, and saying, hey, you can't actually build here. You know, we used to in the past think this is an appropriate place to build. We've learned our
I don't
lesson.
know. Barney, if you want to join me here, I know that might be legally challenging to completely zone out any individual parcels from development. I know
So you
there's
can't
some
do-
good
yeah.
examples of undeveloped property. There's one off Dudley Road. I know that people, you know, there's a developer looking at it, pretty significant. It's not in a floodplain.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I think a lot of them are relatively close to the Charles River in Ward 8, Ward 5. I assume some maybe 4, 1, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not talking about spot zoning of like specific parcels, but
Okay.
saying, you know, I understand if it's already developed, I get it, right? Then legally you can't really turn back the clock on that. But there are some areas where you could say, hey, you can't actually, sorry, you can no longer subdivide this and build by right here because we've changed the zoning going forward.
Well, the council has made some ordinance changes recently that sort of touch on this a little bit. Between that, the stormwater ordinance, the floodplain ordinances, it gets to be restrictive in terms of what you can do in certain areas of the city. It's either much more difficult to build anything, or you have to have a much lighter touch on the property. I don't know. Brian, if you want to add anything.
Just two things. One, the Conservation Commission plays a role in a lot of those properties as well, setting conditions. And if Jennifer Steele were here, she could kind of walk you through how stringent they approach these things. But I guess the other point I was going to make is similar to Jonathan, which is at some point you run into some legal issues with respect to property ownership that probably the law department could speak to better. And, perhaps land acquisition is somewhere down the line as well. When you have properties that are so vulnerable, it's in the city's interest to acquire them, but that's a whole other conversation.
All right. I'll just leave it at, I think there are probably ways of doing it that would be legally compliant. I understand some property owners might be a little potentially disappointed on some of those, but again, if we're talking about this is a property that's not been developed and it is only potentially valuable if subdivided and sold off for development, they're losing maybe theoretical value there, but not value that they currently have.
Good topic for zoning and planning.
Yep.
I was saying.
Looking at the chair.
That would be a very interesting problem to take up. We should talk at the conclusion, Mr. Vice Chair, about some of the implications of the conversation.
All right, thank you.
I'll look forward to that conversation. All right, seeing no further hands, he pauses. Nope, great. No one's online. I believe, I want to. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Albright.
Last minute question. I mean, is it a matter of zoning or is it a matter of setting standards for the water table? I mean, if the water table is so high that you're forced to send water into the stormwater system because that's the only way you can manage.
Yeah, I think that in the end would impact if you were able to put it in a basement. If you're not able to put it in a basement and you're able to, and it's still not in a floodplain and you're able to build on the surface, I know that there's certain rules, but you still may be able to build something. It just may not have an impact with the stormwater rules that we have in place. It may not have an impact on the stormwater going on to neighboring properties or into the river, wherever it is.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
it seems less of a zoning issue and more of a, can they manage to keep the water on their own property or not? And if they can't, without going into the city's stormwater system, then I don't know, can you set a rule that you can't build in that area?
Right. I think this gets into the details of exactly how ISD and engineering, review plans
Yeah.
and, it's not easy to do something that's going to have substantial detriment to stormwater on, certainly in the street or neighboring properties these days.
So we actually do have a docket item that Councilor Kalis put in on this very topic. So we're hoping that you guys can help us discuss this at some point.
We can certainly try. Yep.
Thank you.
I do think, just to follow up, Mr. Vice Chair, that it may be helpful to have a conversation in the Zoning and Planning Committee where the docket item has a few sites where we've seen the impact of the regulations and also where you think the impact has not been sufficient, to see whether there is some site-specific controls. They may not be zoning. They may be, in fact, engineering related, which is Councilor Danberg's point. But I think the public interest that you're articulating is that we would like to avoid having the neighboring properties or the public system overwhelmed by some activity that's avoidable. Now, if it's not avoidable, then it's a whole different story. But I think the question is what's avoidable and how does that play out? And it's hard to do that in a general way in this conversation, but we may benefit from, as we did with the floodplain analysis, having a little more granularity and a little more conversation about what that means. And it may be an ordinance change or it may be a regulation. We don't know what's appropriate, but we can talk about that as scheduling something we might take up in the fall. Thank you.
All set? Great. All right. So now? Seeing no hands in the chamber, seeing none online, I think we should move into our third item. I'm gonna sit on that one. I don't want to close it just yet because when we had originally talked about these two items, we talked about them together. So if you're set, you're more than welcome to come to this table, but at this point, you can use the podium as well. That might actually be easier now that we're kind of in a rhythm here. And for those folks online, we're just getting set up here with the technology.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Cantor. By day, my company Sage Builders LLC designs and mostly renovates highly energy efficient homes. I'm also a certified passive house builder. Like my fellow presenters, Rachel White and John Sloat, I volunteer as a member of the Newton Citizens Commission on Energy, which I will refer to as the Energy Commission. Thank you to Vice Chair Oliver and Chair Albright, who asked the Energy Commission to participate in this meeting. And of course, thank you to the respective chairs, vice chairs, and members of the Public Facilities and Zoning and Planning Committees, other counselors, and members of the administration public for participating in this meeting. We appreciate the opportunity to engage in this discussion on why and how to electrify the under 20,000 square foot residential sector of our built environment. The Energy Commission has been around for a while. We've worked on most all of the major policy initiatives regarding energy over the past decade or more, including LED streetlights, Newton's greenhouse gas emissions inventory, Newton's climate action plan, electricity aggregation, BERDO, which is now the most recent addition to our efforts. This evening, we're going to focus on the challenge to electrify or decarbonize 25,000 Newton homes over the next 25 years. We're going to show why the small residential sector is important and present some case studies of how and why folks are already decarbonizing. Finally, we're going to discuss a couple of proposals to address decarbonization at a larger scale. Above all, we hope to impress upon everyone the need for residents to develop a plan of how they are going to decarbonize their own homes. Hint, insulate and air seal, and stop heating and cooking with fossil fuels. Back around 2021, the Energy Commission introduced the greenhouse gas emissions pie chart for Newton. It illustrates which sectors within Newton generate what percentage of overall gas emissions. We've been doing great work, as you've heard this evening, on municipal projects, and large commercial is on a better path now that we have BERDO in place. Residential, particularly small residential, is the next big frontier. It's true that aggregation greened up the electricity energy source for those who have not opted out, but we have not effectively addressed the 27% of greenhouse gas emissions that come from burning natural gas or oil in our residences. Unfortunately, new construction is not the answer. Our all-electric ordinance and the stretch code are great for addressing decarbonization in new construction and major renovations. But at current rates of new construction, about 120 new or major renovations per year, by 2050, 85% of today's homes will still need to be decarbonized. Folks have asked, is the technology up to the task? And is the electrical grid ready for electrification? Yes and yes. Cold weather heat pumps do provide full heat capacity at temperatures as low as -13 degrees. And both Eversource and DOER suggest that the grid already provides most, if not all, the needed capacity. My colleague Rachel White will demonstrate this further with some case studies showing how and why folks are decarbonizing their homes.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's loud. My name is Rachel White. I am the president and CEO of Big Meister. We are a residential remodeling firm that focuses on decarbonizing homes as part of our renovation projects. In some cases, sorry, I should have advanced the slide. In some cases, decarbonization happens in one fell swoop as part of a single large project. But more often than not, I have found in my experience that it happens incrementally and over time. The key to success is a comprehensive and long-term plan that can be prioritized and sequenced based on the relative impact of various measures, age and condition of existing equipment, opportunities that renovation projects may present, as well as available financial resources. Over the next several slides, I'm going to share 3 case studies of Newton homes that have fully decarbonized over time. And while each house is different, they all rely on what I like to call the 3 key pillars of decarbonization: improved efficiency, elimination of on-site combustion, and 100% renewable power, because they've opted up to 100% green through Newton Power Choice, installed rooftop solar, or a combination of both. So our first case study is of a nearly 100-year-old or over 100-year-old Newton Center Colonial. This house started off with an oil boiler, with gas, hot water, drying and cooking, as well as with window air conditioning units. The owners wanted to electrify for 3 reasons. The first was safety, as one of the owners' homes had burned in a gas explosion in their youth. They also were eager to convert their basement to living space, and eliminating the oil infrastructure in the basement would allow them to do that. Lastly, they recognized that electrification is the future of energy, and they were happy to be early adopters. They moved into their house in 2017 and got started on decarbonization the very next year. The first thing they did was to work with Mass Save to insulate their uninsulated walls. That year, they also installed whole house heat pumps, so heat pumps throughout the entire house. 2 years later, they installed a solar array, maxing out their available roof area with a system that now generates approximately 40% of their annual energy usage. That same year in 2020, having relied on their heat pumps almost exclusively for heating for the previous 2 years, they were also comfortable getting rid of their old oil boiler. They completed their decarbonization journey in 2022 and 23 by eliminating the remaining gas appliances. That was also the year that they hired Big Meister to insulate and finish out their basement and to do some additional attic air sealing. They invested over the course of those 5 years approximately $65,000 in equipment. And here are the results. So they are now using less than half the amount of the energy that that they were before, which is substantial, but not all that surprising given that their walls were completely uninsulated and that they had an ancient and inefficient oil boiler. They've also realized substantial savings on utility expenses thanks to that large solar array, which provides approximately 40% of their annual energy use. I estimate that if they hadn't been able to install solar, that their utility expenses would have likely been flat or possibly would have decreased slightly. Our second case study is of a 60-year-old split level in the Oak Hill neighborhood of Newton. This house started out with oil heating as well as indirect hot water off the boiler. There was central air conditioning that served part but not all of the house, as well as electric cooking and drying. The owner's primary motivation for going all electric was to reduce their environmental footprint. Secondarily, their systems were old. They weren't working that well. They had experienced oil leaks. The heating was loud, and their air conditioning system, which again only served a part of the house, was nearing the end of its useful life. Over the course of 4 years, these homeowners invested about $40,000 in equipment to electrify. Their first step was to install a new electric panel as well as heat pumps in 2021. After that, they worked with Mass Save to improve their home's efficiency, and they installed an electric vehicle charger. They hired Bigmeister in 2024 for 2 reasons. So first, they wanted to improve their home's functionality, but they also weren't satisfied with how it was performing. When they installed their heat pumps, they were sized to meet the entire load of their home, but they found that they were relying on their oil heat much more than they wanted to or expected to. And that was because the heat pumps were not keeping them comfortable. We addressed this complaint in 3 ways. So first, we updated some of the old ductwork, which was sized for a conventional air conditioning system. We also sealed all that ductwork. Secondarily, we brought the attic air handler within the thermal boundary. And lastly, we brought Mass Save back, as you see in 2024, for yet another round of insulation. The home is much more comfortable. And at the beginning of this year, the homeowners finally were confident getting off of their oil system entirely. And here are the results. So even with that EV charger, and they do most of their charging at home, close to 100%, they're using about half of the energy that they did than before they did this work. Utility expenses have gone up slightly by 9%. Without the electric vehicle, however, I estimate that the utility expenses would have been flat. All right, our final case study is the upstairs unit of a 2-family home in Nonantum. This house started off with all gas systems and no air conditioning. In addition to doing her part to reduce her home's climate impact, this homeowner was highly motivated by a desire for cooling. She also wanted to improve indoor air quality, particularly in the kitchen. And she was eager to make better use of her space to optimize it by eliminating her large radiators. So this homeowner's decarbonization journey spanned around 12 years. In the early 2010s to mid-2010s, she did the preparatory work. She worked with Mass Save to insulate, she replaced windows, she upgraded her electric service to support the equipment changes that she started around 2020, first with heat pumps and an EV charger, then a heat pump water heater, followed by an induction stove, and the last step in the process for this homeowner was solar. And over the course of the 12 years, she spent approximately $66,000 in equipment. So this house has achieved the most dramatic savings of the 3 case studies, upwards of 60% on both energy use and utility expenses. And similar to the first home, the dramatic savings in utility expenses are thanks to the large solar array. So these are just 3 of the many homes in Newton that have fully decarbonized. Bigmeister has been in business for 42 years, and for the last 15, we've been electrifying homes as part of our renovation projects. In fact, we have not installed a new fossil heating system in a home for about a decade, and we do not do new construction. We only work on existing homes. It used to be that for an existing home needed to be brought up to the same efficiency standard as a high-performance new home in order to electrify heating. That is no longer the case and actually has not been the case for several years. Advancements in pump technology have made electrification suitable for every home when coupled with moderate efficiency upgrades, and that's really important. Insulation and air sealing ensure comfort, and they help keep operating expenses down. Equally important is planning because, as I said at the beginning, most of these projects do not happen in one fell swoop. They happen over time. Planning is what allows homeowners to sequence upgrades for maximal benefit, and it helps them avoid, which is really important, sort of emergency equipment failures, which would lock you into another fossil system for another 10, 20, 30 years. So with a long-term plan, every home can go all electric and fully decarbonize over time. And now I'll turn it over to John, who's going to share a couple of actions that the council could consider taking to accelerate and scale residential decarbonization and help us get to the sector to net zero by 2050.
Mr. Chairman, you want to entertain questions at the end of the presentation or during?
Yes, sorry, if that's all right, I was kind of
Yeah.
thinking we follow that
That's fine.
cadence.
Thank you, Rachel. My name is John Sloat. I'm a retired solar engineer and going to talk about our proposals. But before I do that, I wanted to give you a sense of where some of these proposals had come from. We are informed by lots of information, like what Jonathan shared. Some of the big picture data about what's going on in the world really matters to us. We're also informed by the practical side of what it takes to get these things done. So the kinds of insights that Rachel provides us as a practitioner every day are very helpful to us. And we're also informed by the questions that you all provide us that make us think about what's important. Jonathan referred to a couple of those just a minute ago, and he said, our answers are yes and yes, but I don't want you to just accept that at face value. I want to do a double click on that and give you a sense of how we think about these and how we get to these answers. So one of the first questions that came up was, is the technology up to the job? And in particular, we're talking about heat pump technology. What I want to be really clear about is that heat pump technology has changed a lot in the last 10 to 20 years. Heat pumps are now built with oversized heat exchangers relative to what they used to have, variable speed compressors, smart controls, all designed to ensure that these will operate efficiently, not just below freezing, but well below zero. That is the standard. That's the industry standard. That's what the on-the-shelf equipment is now, today, has been for some time. In addition, there is a relatively new generation of heat pumps, which are air-to-water heat pumps, very different from what we're probably used to thinking about. This allows people with hydronic heat distribution systems, so baseboard radiators in their house, to electrify without putting ducts in. That's been a big barrier for many residents in Newton who are sitting on homes that have hydronic heating systems and wondering, how am I ever going to afford all the ductwork that has to go in here? I don't even have room for it. That's not the case now. So we're very convinced that heat pumps are here for the right reason, already answering all of those questions. Another big question that came up is about the grid. Is that really ready for all this electrification? So for context, it's helpful to understand that although we're in a cold weather climate, because so many people heat with fossil fuels, we are a summer peaking electric grid. That is the big grid that is the big peak that determines the capacity constraints that we have to work with. When we install heat pumps, most of that energy is going into heating the house. That is not stressing the summer peak. That is not adding to the capacity concerns that the utilities have. And in fact, if we're putting in higher efficiency heat pumps and replacing lower efficiency air conditioning systems, we're actually lessening the burden on that summer peak. So we're actually improving the situation, not making it worse. Even with all that, Eversource is committing over $5.5 billion in infrastructure improvements to be ready for the following generation of demand that will occur down the road. So that is investments we don't obviously control, but it's really important to understand this is how we came to these answers. We considered lots of ideas and we thought about this a lot, and we are very, very confident in these positions. So we wanted you to have that as context to understand how we came to the proposals that we did. So let's talk proposals. We think there are two big ideas that we really want to spend some time on here. The first, Councilor Danberg, I think maybe you were listening in on this, I don't know. We really believe that we need to adopt energy use reporting for all dwellings, make a level playing field for everyone. And second, we believe that we should strategically decommission gas lines and electrify homes instead through NPAs. Now, I'm using an acronym there, NPAs. Stands for non-pipeline alternatives. I'm going to explain more about what that is in just a minute. But let's start with the energy use reporting piece. Now, energy use reporting for homes is not a new idea. It's been going on for well over 2 decades across various communities in the United States, states, counties, municipalities. This is just a sampling of some of the ordinances that are in place today. But one of the things that we've observed is that almost all of these programs have focused on reporting at time of sale or time of rent. And we don't think that that is appropriate because it does not provide someone enough time to actually respond to that information with a market decision. And in fact, a number of these communities feel the same way. So these ordinances we notice now around the country are starting to get changed, in which they're requiring the reporting to occur earlier than time of sale. We still think that's a mistake because that's only a one point in time improvement. We think it's still too late in the process. And beyond being too late, as was described by Rachel, these projects are not necessarily one-shot deals. They can occur over a long period of time. And so what we really think matters is having data that's always available across all homes so that at any time that somebody wants to electrify, they have the information they need to work with. So we believe that adopting energy use reporting for all dwellings is really fundamental and that it's really got to be always available. Because when it is always available for people who choose to use that information to compare themselves to others, they may become more motivated to start down the path of decarbonization in the first place. For those that are in the process of working on this, they can be guided through the various stages that they take. And with the help of experts like what we saw from Rachel, they can help them understand how to best attack their greenhouse gas emissions and their energy use. And in the larger picture, if we have this information across all homes all the time, we can start to see patterns and understand more about what's going on in the city. And so the idea of producing, for example, well-illustrated and documented examples of what people have done in their homes, or templates that help people understand, gee, if I'm in this condition, what might I need to do? We could be equipping, for example, energy coaches with more information about what's actually going on, how much people are saving, and what the art of the possible is. All of this is designed to get us to electrify at scale. We have 25,000 homes to get to in 25 years. It's got to be at scale. We can't do this in a small scale way. We've got to think big. So energy use reporting for all dwellings, really important. Second significant idea here is about strategically decommissioning gas lines. And in order to understand this, we want to first go back and understand how does this process work today? Pretty simple. Many of you participate in this. So the current process, if we can simplify this, National Grid would propose some pipe replacements, right? The city would review those replacements. Unfortunately, the city cannot reject them, but we can make our voice known. Nonetheless, they're going to move forward, and the DPU ultimately reviews these projects. Lacking other options, they're going to improve what's put in front of them. And the pipes are going to be replaced at a cost of $5.7 million per mile. These are the actual costs the National Grid has incurred over the years, and their current filings with the DPU document. Since the last time we went through a GSEP process in the city, things have changed. The Department of Public Utilities has issued some new orders which clarify something very important. This gets back to that term I was using before, NPAs. What they're saying is, if there is a different way to address the aging infrastructure that we're all madly trying to replace, that would yield more long-term benefits and be at least equal in cost to what we're doing today, if not better, that could be a preferable alternative. So that's a non-pipeline alternative. And they have specifically in a recent order called out electrification of homes and buildings as one of the options. So this is not just something they're allowing, they are now encouraging. And what's really important here is that if they don't have NPA alternatives put in front of them, they have no other choice but to approve what the utility is putting forward. So they're depending on others to come up with these NPA projects as alternatives. The DPU is not going to do it on their own, right? So we imagine a different process now, which begins with an assessment by the city of the streets that would be a viable NPA fit. There's various criteria that are involved here. We don't know all of them, but many of them. But here's a simple example. If a street is a one pipe feed, that is, there's only a connection from one end of a pipe and there's nothing at the other end, that is an automatic NPA project. There's many of those around the city. So there's criteria like that you could apply and say we could produce a map which shows us where the options are. And then what happens? So when Grid proposes a replacement, any of them that are proposing replacements on an NPA street should become an NPA alternative instead of a pipe replacement. So we already have the information to filter the requests that are coming at us. Now, National Grid may have other reasons to want to contest this, right? It's possible in each case. But in that case, the DPU is the ultimate arbiter of what happens if there's competing alternative projects being proposed. One is a pipeline replacement, one's an NPA project. They are the ones who determine. And any of the projects that are approved are then electrified, applying the GSEP money that would have gone to replacing the pipe, right? So this is what's really key. There is now a way to make this start to happen at scale. So since we're talking about money, let's talk about the financials. What does this look like? So we've run a case history on this. I think many of you know that some residents of Garland Road had made a lot of noise about not wanting to have their pipeline replaced recently. And so we decided to use that as a case history. There are 10 homes on that street. And so we went and did some research around this. So we started with, on the left side, you can see the pipeline replacement costs that National Grid had proposed for that street. And so we understood those as a baseline. We then went to each of the homes on Garland Road and did a survey with the residents to understand how much they had electrified or not. And so we could do an inventory and figure out everything down to the details of did they have the right size panel, for example, so that if they only had 100 amp service, we had to upgrade it to 200 amp and so on, everything that it took. So we made an inventory of every house to see what it would take. That's the second bucket, the cost to electrify Garland's 10 homes. We then said, what if the Garland Road condition is not typical? What if those residents are more inclined to buy heat pumps or whatever? And so this isn't necessarily representative. So we went and got data about the average electrification adoption rates locally and applied that to 10 buildings. And so what would the average case be? So for the average cluster of 10 homes in Newton, that's what that third bucket would be. And fourth would be, what's the worst case scenario? What if no one's done any electrification at all? You had to pay for the entire thing. That would be the worst case, all right? So we compared those costs, and here's what we found. So the pipeline replacement cost is well over $600,000 in the case of Garland Road. The Garland electrification approach would save 41% of that money. You would completely electrify all of the homes on the street for 41% less and eliminate the pipe. The average case scenario is a 37% improvement, and even the worst case scenario delivers a 17% improvement in capital expenditures. All right. And that isn't the end of the story, because there's the long-term value of doing all this. This is why we're probably all sitting in this room motivated by this. And so when you do a cost of carbon calculation according to EPA regulation standards, we find an additional over $600,000 of long-term net carbon savings occur. Given that this pipe was about 600 feet long, it's about $1,000 per foot of pipe not replaced that we gain benefit on. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to see value in this, right? So our thinking here is that to strategically decommission these gas lines is probably a multi-step process. You've got to start by establishing the NPA criteria. That probably takes a diverse working group to make sure they've got it right, and map the streets so that we start from knowing where are we, right? We believe that we should be piloting some neighborhood decommissioning to test this out, make sure it works. Let's do 100 homes at a time before we start doing 1,000, right? Let's make sure we understand how this works. And in terms of understanding how it works, we know there's multiple players here. So creating an operational plan that says, what's the role of not just National Grid, but Eversource, who may have to be putting in more transformers, for example, and so on. We have to think about all these players, understanding how this will work when an NPA project is triggered. But we think the opportunity is massive because there's over 300 miles of pipe in Newton. Replacing them at 5.7 million is a $1.7 billion expense. If we can pull, even in the worst case scenario, 17% off of that, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars saved in the city and lowering greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. So.
Just turned it off.
We're just about finished here, but the starting points, basically, the energy use reporting requirement that we described, we think that's pretty straightforward. People understand that. We think in the second case, establishing the criteria for NPA projects is the starting point to make sure that we can go in that direction. And then the other steps that we described behind that would probably occur. So that's our thinking at this point. We are very, very pleased to have been part of this conversation. We really thank Councilors Oliver and Albright for bringing this to everybody's attention and allow us to do this. We also, I will say, we love to engage in this subject. We are kind of energy nerds, no surprise. So we'd love to have your comments and questions and feedback. And I'd like to ask Rachel and Jonathan to join me. We'll take your questions.
Okay, so before we kind of jump into questions, I do just want to make a quick comment. Excuse me. The intent behind this item is exactly what we just heard John say, which is this is a conversation starter. Like I literally just heard about NPAs and I have 1,000 questions. But literally, I want us to consider where we're at in this particular, at this time and extending beyond the Berto ordinance that we have in place. What is it going to take? At what kind of timeline do we think all of these recommendations and the electrification of, as you put it, 25,000 plus individual homes? Like there are a lot of things for us to consider before we start to entertain the word require, because as you might imagine, that's where a lot of knees start to knock. But from that perspective, and without kind of digging into this too far, questions? Councilor Albright. Great.
So thank you for a great presentation. It was really comprehensive and covered a lot of territory. A couple of things, bigger things, and then at the end, I want to ask you a very specific thing. But about a year ago, Ann Berwick and I started talking to National Grid about looking for a pilot as you're talking about, an NPA in Newton. And we made it to the point, so Amy Smith from National Grid set up these massive meetings where we had, I don't know, Ann Berwick is in part of this as well. There might have been 20 people on the call involving National Grid and Eversource. And what they were looking for was streets where they could, what are the streets in Newton where they're leak-prone pipe that they could electrify at the end of the line so that they're not in the middle of the line the way Garland Road is. The problem there is that it's in the middle of a section of pipe that they can't abandon because of the pressure of the whole system, that's what they tell us. So they were looking for a pilot, and unfortunately the process has gotten bogged down because I think National Grid is I think the problem, and based on Amy Smith's last email, is that she's just had to go to multiple states doing multiple hearings. So she's spending a lot of time working with government agencies and having hearings, and not as much on doing pilots the way we would like to have them. But anyway, she's actually reached out and said, here are some dates for the next meeting. So we are on that path, and I'm glad that we're thinking along the same lines. And just to that end, on June 18th, which is the second meeting of PF in June, Amy Smith from National Grid will come, and she has found for me a guy named Chris Comack, who's the infrastructure planning guy at Eversource for electrification. And the two of them will come to that meeting, and we will have a conversation with them about what is the planning looking like and how can we help. So I would hope that you guys can come to that meeting. Put it on your calendars.
Great. I mean, we very much appreciate that. I will say we've been having also some conversations with National Grid about this. And I guess I'd make two quick recommendations. Number one, The street right next to Garland Road, Judith Road, is a single pipe feed. It's a road, it's got maybe 12 or 15 houses on it. It's a perfect size. It's right here. It's easy. That would be a simple alternative. As well, we've reproposed back to National Grid because the Garland Road issue isn't just that it is in the middle. Because if that's the criteria, we can only do about 5% of the pipes in Newton. That's not appropriate. It's that the proportion of gas that goes through that pipe is disproportionately consumed by people outside of Garland Road.
Right.
There's a ratio that they look at inside the pipes to determine that. Pipes that have a relatively high ratio of consumption on their streets are still candidates for this kind of work. And it's a street by street assessment. So that's one of the things we'd like to engage Grid on, is to understand, because they have that data, how they could help us score the pipes, if you will, and find those alternatives. So we proposed something back different from Garland Road, a place that we think that if they actually take a different pipe that's 1 block away out, we can still feed what we need to. And we're asking for feedback on that. And frankly, it's hard to get answers because it just takes a long time.
I'll come to the June 18th meeting, but, you know, one of the things that they were interested in, and I think we should be interested in as well, is going to a road where they were going to replace the pipe, because then there's a plan, there's money, and we perhaps can use that money to help with electrification. So while Judith Road might be great, it may not have the leak-prone pipe that we can use the money for. So it's a very this is the most complex problem that I think I've faced in a long time.
I think the one other thing we've learned is it's really important to have one of their gas system engineers in the conversation, not getting feedback, you know, offline, that they can in real time understand the issues and make assessments, which we think are really important.
So those are the big picture things that I wanted to talk about. But the small picture thing was, you talked about baseboard heating, that you don't need to do ductwork. What about if you have old radiators? What can you do with old radiators with respect?
So you're thinking about the air to water source heat pumps.
Yes.
So the issue is that heat pumps can only generate about 130 to 140 degree hot water, generally speaking. And your radiators were designed for 180 degree water. So if the radiators were sized properly for the house, then 130 or 40 degree water is not going to meet the same heating capacity as 180 degree water. However, if you insulate and air seal a bit, then you might be able to reduce your loads so that in fact 130 or 140 degree water would be sufficient. So it takes, again, planning and a little bit of engineering work to figure this all out, but it's entirely doable.
Okay, so that's an interesting notion, because so many houses in Newton are that old that they have radiators and not baseboard heating. So yeah, it's great to know that that's possible. Thank you very much.
Great. So I have in order Councilors Danberg, Gentile, Leary, Baker. Good. Okay. Please go ahead. And also the one thing I will kind of add is we might want to keep the detail perhaps for a future conversation, and because I suspect there are going to be a lot of kind of broad questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to just ask one or two very short questions, because we have a lot of people that want to speak. That's interesting that heat pumps are designed for 140 and radiators are designed for 180. And so the gap would be bridged by additional insulation. I'm thinking, actually, you're asking for streets. Herrick Road. Herrick Road goes up to Andover Newton. Andover Newton is now low load because it was purchased by a person who hasn't made a decision on what is going to happen there. But there are a number of houses that go up there, dead ends. And my Chase Street feeds into it. So maybe we're not a heavy, we don't, not a lot of gas that goes through there goes to other places. And one possibility. On heat pumps, air to water, which I think we need to have good conversation on because so many people in the city of Newton have this. I'd like to hear more about where we are in that technology. We don't have to do that tonight, but that's something that I'd like to hear. And a quick question. A lot of people love their gas fireplaces. That I have one, and not here, but I have one on the vineyard, and I just love it. What can we do? What can electricity do to take that place? Do you have any? Is there any technology that can make it as nice to be in the room?
A screen,
It's green.
a screen showing a fire.
Yeah. Oh yes, a screen, a TV screen. Yeah.
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 No,
Okay.
Is there any good alternative? Yeah.
No.
Might as well be honest about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on your list of things to create. Thank you.
Also, Commissioner Berwick, Commissioner Director, sorry.
Yes, co-director, I guess. Yeah, thanks very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, just a couple points, or three actually. First of all, I agree totally that spreading the GSEP money to cover electrification makes all kinds of sense. Second point, I know from the conversations I've been in with Councilor Albright and National Grid that the utilities are waiting for a DPU order that would allow Eversource and National Grid to share data with each other. And apparently National Grid thinks that's crucial. It's easy to understand why it might in fact be crucial. Anyway, that's still supposed to be forthcoming from the DPU. And third thing is a question for John Sloat, which is, have you shared your findings on savings going from gas to GSEP to electrification? Have you shared those findings with the DPU? Because I think they'd probably be quite interested.
Yes, I gave them a series of spreadsheets which backed it up and actually heard from the chairman. He said it was very interesting and he'd like to see more work like it.
Okay, great. I thought they would probably be quite interested.
Great, thank you. Councilor Gentile.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
So I've been sitting patiently and quietly for over 2.5 hours, so I hope you'll bear with me and just give me a couple of minutes. I wanted to start with the stories that were shared with us about the Newton Center Colonial, the Oak Hill split level, and the 2-family in Nonantum. Those are all good stories, all believable. It's going on quite a bit. But I just want to remind everyone that those were decisions that families came to on a voluntary basis, that they felt was the best thing for them, their house, at that time in their lives. And it was all voluntary. And I'm all for everything that we can do to get people to that point. My quick little story, my colleagues are tired of hearing it, but earlier this year, I completed a project in West Newton where I replaced oil heat with a new heat pump system that heats and cools the entire house. I replaced 20 windows with triple pane windows, and I made a number of insulation and weatherization improvements. I believe in doing those things. I've got a new project going on right now where I'm changing out a gas stove to an electric stove. And I just put down a deposit on a new heat pump system that will heat and cool this entire house. And the reason I put down the deposit is I'm sure the folks on the Energy Commission know, these heat pumps there's a lot of changes going on. And I wanted to wait to get the new Mitsubishi product, which I'm told will be even more highly efficient. But because of the manufacturers have plenty of the former stuff hanging around, they're not releasing it very quickly. So I'm in line to get the equipment, and I'm fine waiting for it so I can get the better equipment and more efficient equipment. Again, these are voluntary decisions that I'm making. Mandatory energy use reporting is the first step in ultimately requiring our constituents to make certain improvements that will cost them money, just like Birdo is right now. And I'm not willing to go down that path. For someone to say that the grid, the electrical grid system in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is ready to take on all this additional usage need, it's just not telling the whole story. It's going to require additional work on behalf of Eversource. I'm sure that our friends on the Energy Commission are aware of the huge substation that is being built. It's over $1 billion in Cambridge right now to keep up what's going on there. And there will be other substations that are going to need to be built to meet the demand. And so it's just the reality. And I don't know too many neighborhoods in Newton that will be volunteering for that kind of a project in their backyard. The other issue is, so I am totally opposed to any kind of a mandatory use reporting system. The other reason for not going down that path, we discussed this a little bit during the budget, and the current administration couldn't have been any clearer that they are in no position right now to take on such a huge task for 25,000 properties. They can't do it. We passed Birdo late summer or early in the fall, and as we heard earlier tonight, they're not even the commission that is ultimately supposed to produce and promulgate the rules and the regs. We just gave them an outline. Who's going to actually get into the weeds and do all the recommendations for how to implement it? They're not even going to sit down until September. Now, that's not a criticism. It's just a reality of what's going on and how long it can take to do things. And now we're going to go down a path of trying to get the administration to require mandatory reporting of residential properties. Why don't we let them do their work and have lessons learned and do a good job with the commercial ordinance that we passed? So I won't even get into, I don't understand the second recommendation well enough yet in order to comment on it, but I just want to make it clear that I don't share my colleague's opinion early expressed tonight about moving on to residential. So please, people, us included, counselors, make sure we talk to our people in sustainability. Make sure we talk to, the mayor's office and so forth, and just see if this is a path that we should be trying to go down right now. And here's the last thing that I'll leave you with. And this won't make me any new friends, but I really don't care. When we meet on the 18th, I hope we're going to be prepared to talk about the appropriateness of speakers coming in who specialize in energy efficiency renovation work, lobbying us, advocating for a mandatory energy use reporting system and all of the doors that opens. So I'll be ready to bring that up on the 18th. I'm just giving everybody a heads up. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Leary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was struck by your numbers on on savings on electrification. I wasn't quite as familiar with that. I had always thought that it was, could be costly to some consumers, especially if there weren't rebates that could help subsidize that, which we're getting increasingly concerned about. And to Councilor Gentile's point, savings like that for homeowners would really be a huge encouragement, obviously, especially in some of the communities where people don't have as many resources, which are often communities that are also heat islands and things like that. So there's a couple of things. I've also been involved in some of the conversations with National Grid and with Gas Allies, and have been supportive with a number of bills, particularly that would allow cities and towns to partner with National Grid more and allow more flow of information. Because one of the things that I've been hearing is that they have all the information. And in some of the conversations, I've been kind of frustrated with, well, there always seems to be an excuse why they can't do something. And that's what I run into. And I'm wondering if they're really serious about getting off gas. I think sometimes they're not. I'm also concerned about fewer customers supporting the remaining infrastructure, which, you know, this is a long road and we're not supposed to use this this gas infrastructure, you know, in the next 30 or 40 years, but there are going to be people that get left behind. And so I'm concerned about that and how we manage that and how we can really work to bring people along. And then will tariffs access any access to equipment such as heat pumps? Are these all being made in this country? Or I imagine we are a global economy that this will have some impact. Could that slow down our effect? And then another question that or concern that Councilor Gentile brought up was the hardening of the grid. And I have heard often that we still need to do some improvements with that. And I've been happy to see more coordination between Eversource and National Grid now. So I do have some questions about that as well. So those are just my thoughts, and there's some questions in there too. But I believe we have to do this, and it's something that's like when we plan to go to the moon. It's going to be really hard, but we did it, and that's how I see this project. And I don't want. There are going to be barriers and things that are going to be very difficult to do, but I think we need to have that commitment to really get ahead of this because it's that important. So thank you. If you can comment on any of those questions that I had, I mean, some of them you might not have the answers to tonight.
I'll just give you a quick one on the costs where we said the gas utility had all the information. They don't have the information about what's inside people's homes. And in terms of electrical equipment, they especially don't have that. That takes, in our case, going into people's homes and looking with them at what they had.
I was referring more to their own gas infrastructure.
Oh,
and,
sorry.
you know, and how they make those decisions about where they can actually consider neighborhood electrification. And we were discussing Garland Road and they were like, oh, well, we can't do that. And this is why. And it got to be really technical. And if you're not an engineer, it's sometimes difficult to really follow.
I would just add, and I recall from John Sloat's stories about the process dealing with N-Grid on Garland Road, that you can't always take what they say at face value, and that it really took a lot of digging to figure out what is really possible. So I think having engineers in the room on both sides will make the conversations much more fruitful and quicker.
Right. Bill had a question.
Can we? I really don't want us to get into the weeds on a particular project, please.
You have to go.
Well, he's coming up. The other thing I would remind people is this is a process. This is over the next 25 years. It's not like everyone's going to report their data next week and then the following week be required to change other systems. That's never going to happen. the point we're trying to make here is that we got to start this process now. We already are facing a line of 1,000 houses per year, which is, we're never going to do. So that means that the numbers in the future are going to be all that much more greater. So we need to start now with helping people develop plans so they can implement them when they're ready over time as equipment expires. And as they do renovations or additions, they can really be on the path to electrification.
I just wanted, I think what Jonathan was perfect.
Just speak into the mic.
What Jonathan said was perfect. The fact is that,
Identify for the.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm Philip Hanser, and I'm with the Energy Commission.
The public doesn't know who you are.
Yes. With regard to the hardening of the grid, let me just point out that DOER has looked at it, number of folks have looked at it, and the issue around what National Grid or Eversource is doing in National Grid in its service territory mostly has to do with smartening the grid and improving the capability for dealing with smart metering. Those investments are separate from whether or not the grid has sufficient capacity to take on the load. And the fact is that the grid has sufficient capacity, but they want to smarten the grid for various reasons to improve the efficiency of it. And so most of those investments, including the $1 billion substation, is not really a capacity investment. It's really an intelligence investment to modify the system to deal with a smart grid. Okay. The second point I would raise only is that the GSEP orientation, that is to say, the replacement of the pipes, has been only oriented towards replacing the pipes and not thinking about the possibility of selectively modifying the pipes that are being replaced so as to enhance the possibility of enhancing electrification in areas. And in fact, what's pretty clear is that National Grid and the other gas companies, frankly, don't have the conceptual tools to kind of do that sort of thing because that's not been their orientation. It's been fix the pipes and then go away. And what's clear is in the next version of GSEP, as to be reported by the DPU, they will now have to come forward with plans in which they rethink how they do GSEP in order to think about how they can selectively begin to take apart the gas system. And then one last point, which is implicit in what you're saying, is the DPU nor the state legislature has dealt with the question of the stranded gas assets that are going to be left over in 2050 when the conversions finally happen. And that's a large financial burden that needs to be thought about, and that's at this point in time unanswered. So hopefully that answers.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I'm going to ask again, let's not get into the weeds of these back and forths yet. Tonight, I really want to stay to the topics that we collectively know that we need more information on, and then start to tackle those one at a time, because there's going to be a lot of information going back and forth. If that's fair, right? Great. I have Councilors Baker, then Getz.
So I want to go to what the chair indicated, and this is the first of a conversation, and to respond or at least pick up on Councilor Gentile. The issue before the council is what regulatory arrangements are appropriate for us to consider, if any, when, and when do they look like? And that's a longer term conversation. There's also the educational part of this that I think is a vital part of what the community can do. I just have to say that I'm hearing all of this, and Mr. Cantor knows my house because he worked on it. I find it very difficult to imagine converting a 1700 house, as much as you did, Jonathan, into any of these configurations. And so I'm concerned about what amounts to orphan properties that are going to be in either at the wrong end of the pipe or at the wrong end of the ordinance, and figure out how to take care of people like that. Not me. I'm not going to be around that long if you're talking a 25-year horizon, even though I've hung around for a while. But I think the historic and old properties in the city are a specific challenge that I think at some point we're going to have a conversation about. But I don't expect that conversation to occur tonight, but I think it really does go to the question that we have to reflect on when we do an ordinance of general application. How does it land in specific places? So.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Getz.
Thank you for this presentation, very
Microphone,
fascinating.
please.
Well, okay, here we go. Fascinating, and, I really appreciate the roadmap that you've given us. It's great. I actually want to take advantage of Josh being here, just out of like where we are with the geothermal. No, not you, Josh Krinsman, Josh Morse. Because at Countryside, because that's where I'd like to go, in terms of hooking in. And I know that digging, because I had seen the huge, drilling that was going on, and where we are with the neighborhood, in that neighborhood, that potential pilot for the geothermal. Is there any update on that?
So what Councilor Getz is referring to is network geothermal. So the city of Newton itself is not pursuing a pilot for network geothermal. We are for both Countryside and Franklin, however, with our solar fields, creating for lack of a better word, a T connection that would allow for future expansion of or tying into the well field, should network geothermal become a viable solution down the road. It's still in its infancy, and there are several hurdles that it needs to overcome from a state standpoint. But I am hopeful that eventually it will be something that can move forward. But again, right now our efforts at Countryside and Franklin are planning for the future at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you for that. The other piece of it is I have to tell you that they're replacing the gas line on, it's literally my block. They're replacing the gas line. And I so worry about what you mentioned, in terms of like, they are literally digging the trench next to the existing pipe. And, so here we are crowding the roadway, the underneath the road with this pipe. So they're going to then leave the existing cast iron in the road, and they're going to replace, and they're going to put a new gas line in. And there's no thought, in terms of potentially putting in something else so that then we could be more, thinking forward in terms of other utility or whatever we want to put in the ground. So it's just a very tragic moment right now in our neighborhood, just because it's just what's going on here. It's pretty not good. Okay, that's it for me.
Great. Anyone else? Counselor Baker.
Just, I do think that these are conversations that relate between the electrical system and the gas system, as people have talked about. And I look forward to the conversation in June when Eversource comes in, because Councilor Gentiles raised the concern about the degree to which all of the additional load is going to require additional infrastructure, whatever that is. And we certainly ought to be understanding what that looks like on a local basis. So I hope that when that conversation occurs, that that can be clarified. The irony is that all of us have been sitting here looking at computers from time to time. I can't go in and do a Google search without getting artificial intelligence that shows up, but is just sucking energy out of the system, to put all that electricity in front of us. And I'm sitting here wondering, you have a national administration that seems to be going in an entirely different direction, how that's all going to affect us here. So I hope we can keep that in mind and figure out ways that Newton can go forward, notwithstanding what I think is a really quite remarkable turnaround at the national level, which we've got to figure out how to deal with. Anyway.
Great, thank you. So I do think from here, I have a list of comments, questions, thoughts, additional topics that we should discuss and figure out how we want to tackle them, right? With that being said, looking forward to that conversation. I think we're also looking to hold this item in both committees. Motion to hold in PF. You want to poll your committee?
So Counselor Danberg, are you going to move hold in both committees again?
Well, okay, there we go.
Yes, move hold in both committees, PF and ZAP.
So all those in favor of hold in PF, say aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, so that's done.
Great. And in zoning and planning, we have a motion to hold. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So those are both unanimous votes. Are we still 7-0 on both? Great. Thank you. And I really do appreciate everyone for your time tonight. I know we were here for a fair amount of time, but my guess is there's going to be a few more of these. So thank you very much, and everyone have a great night.